Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back into the video day. And today we're going to be talking about the Atlanta Falcons potentially trading Taylor Heinicke. As it's been reported by Bleacher Report and other sources that Taylor Heinicke is most likely on his way out of Atlanta. I don't know what to think about this. There have been a couple reports, Bleacher Report, Sports Illustrated, NFL Pro Football rumors as well. About Taylor Heinicke potentially on the way out and the Falcons hoping to trade him. Indications from Taylor Heinicke that he's on his way out from the Atlanta Falcons. And I don't know what the value is for Taylor Heinicke, a guy who has an expensive contract. This is his last year of a 2-year, $14 million deal. So the Falcons overpaid to get a backup quarterback for Desmond Ridder last year. And now that overpaid backup quarterback is now the QB3 in the Atlanta Falcons depth chart. I really don't see a lot of teams going after Taylor Heinicke. This is a guy who is shown to be really solid in the NFL in his career. He has a 13-15-1 record as a starter with the Washington Commanders and the Atlanta Falcons, and one start with the Carolina Panthers. So it's not like he's been bad. He's been really solid. Now this last year, he did get 4 starts with Atlanta, and this was his worst year out of all. He was 1-3. His record as a quarterback was 1-3 compared to 2023. The Commanders being 5-3. 2021 with the Commanders, they were 7-8. That was his worst record. Even though it was the least amount of games and starts he's played in the season in a while. In the last 2 seasons, 2022 and 2020, still, this is, the worst stretch of 4 games I think he's had in a while. 74 for 136, 54 completion percentage, which is the lowest of his career. He threw 890 passing yards in 4 starts. He threw a total of 1,900 passing yards in 9 starts in 2022 with the Commanders. So imagine that. I mean, if you times 2 the starts, 4 starts with the Falcons, he only has 890 passing yards, while the season before that, 9 starts with the Commanders, 1,900 receiving yards. That's a 1,100 difference. I know that there were 5 less starts, but I don't think he was going to put up 1,100 passing yards and potentially 5 other starts that would have happened if he got those opportunities. And also he threw 5 touchdown passes, which if you look at it as well, threw 12 in 9 starts the year before that. Obviously I know that there's 5 starts that are missing, but I don't think he's throwing well, I could be wrong, but I don't think he would have thrown 7 touchdown passes in 5 starts. And then the interceptions actually went down, but at the same time, didn't play as much. 4 interceptions in 4 starts. So there was an interception for each start. And he had 6 interceptions in 9 starts in the 2022 season. So, I wouldn't say I would say the interceptions this year was worse. He was averaging an interception per game, while he only had 6 interceptions in 9 starts in 2022. It's only that's like almost an interception a game. It's like 0.8 or 0.7 or something like that. So just things weren't great in 2023 for Atlanta. For a guy who's making $7 million a year as a backup and a part-time starter, things didn't go good. But I just don't know about Atlanta potentially trading him. I know that he's not a backup quarterback anymore. The Falcons have Kirk Cousins. They have Michael Penix Jr. I just don't feel confident in those 2 guys. And that might come out wrong. Because I feel confident in those 2 guys on the football field. Kirk Cousins is great as a starter. He's going to be great for Atlanta. Michael Penix is great. I'm not saying Taylor Heinicke is better than either one of those guys, or that either one of those guys are struggling or will struggle for Atlanta. The main concern for me is injuries. Both guys, it's very rare that you find 2 quarterbacks and you have 2 really talented quarterbacks as your starting quarterback and your backup quarterback that have had very serious injuries. Kirk Cousins is just coming off a torn Achilles. I know Michael Penix Jr. had a very healthy season in Washington, but he had some serious injuries, I believe, with his knee in college football. So both guys have an injury history. So that's something that you have to be careful with. And one of those guys that has an injury history is a rookie. So right now, if you get rid of Taylor Heinicke and you don't pick up another quarterback, I think it's like Nathan Rourke, who would become the QB3, which I feel like the San Francisco 49ers in 2022 really proved that it's important to have a third quarterback. And they proved it so much that the NFL changed the rules where you could have 3 active quarterbacks on your game day roster. I feel like the Atlanta Falcons are a team that really should be taking advantage of that when you have Kirk Cousins, a guy who just tore his Achilles, and Michael Penix Jr., who had an injury history in Washington or in college football. I believe his injury was with a different team, and then he transferred to Washington. Although I know he had an injury history in college football, but I think the injuries were before Washington. But anyways, San Francisco in that NFC Championship, all that we saw happen in that NFC Championship game changed the NFL rules, and now you see 3 quarterbacks on an active game day roster. So I feel like Atlanta is probably, out of all teams, is the team that should be taking advantage of that with your 2 quarterbacks, your starter and your backup, both having serious injuries in the last couple years, and one of them, who is your starter, is old, and 35, 36 years old, something like that, Kirk Cousins is. And then the other, Michael Penix Jr., is a rookie. And you haven't seen him on an NFL field in the regular season yet. We've seen him in the preseason. He looked great. But he has not played in the regular season yet. So I know Taylor Heinicke is not a guy who, did great last year for Atlanta. But I know he's a guy who in his career has a record of 13-15-1 and has done some solid things. Sure, he struggled last year with Atlanta, but honestly, in that offense, with Arthur Smith running it, who wouldn't struggle? That was a train wreck with what, the offense he was running in Atlanta last year. And, outside of Drake London, there weren't a lot of great weapons. I mean, obviously, Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson, but I think those are 2 guys that really weren't being used right. I think that will totally change in 2024. And if you look at it now, they've added in Darnell Mooney, who very underrated wide receiver from the Chicago Bears. I think he'll be a great addition to the Falcons offense next to Drake London as the wide receiver duo. So this is an improved offense. I just don't know if you would want to trade your quarterback 3, who's been successful in the NFL, even though he wasn't successful for you last season. Yes, is he overpaid? But it's not like you have 2 quarterbacks that you can be, reliant on to start and stay healthy. Obviously, you can trust them on how they're going to play. Both guys, Penix and Kirk Cousins. You're going to trust that if you give them the opportunity to play, either one of them, both will play good. I think Michael Penix would be good as a rookie, although he's not going to play because of Kirk Cousins. But these are 2 guys who have a deep injury past. So I just don't think it would be smart to get rid of your quarterback 3, who has a 13-15 record in his NFL career, which if you got rid of him, then the backup quarterback to Michael Penix Jr., so the 3rd string becomes Nathan. I think his name, he's from the Jaguars. His name's like Nathan Rourke or something like that. And he has no experience as a starter. So I don't know if that's the guy you want to be as the 3rd string next to 2 injury-prone quarterbacks, who I think both will stay healthy. I'm wishing for both to stay healthy. But I think you have to think about that before you trade Taylor Heinicke. And also, here's the other thing. No one's going to want to trade for someone who, honestly, just to be completely honest, no one's going to want to trade for someone who has a terrible contract, even though it's an expiring deal. He's going to be a free agent next year. No one's going to want to take that contract on. It's $7 million for most teams, that would be their QB3. I can only name 5 teams that I think would bring in Taylor Heinicke to bring their backup quarterback. To bring Taylor Heinicke in as their backup quarterback. Here are the only 5 teams I can come up with out of the 29 other teams that would potentially be the backup quarterback for these teams, and not the third string. The Kansas City Chiefs, I think, are one team to mention because I think Carson Wentz is terrible. He showed that in the preseason game today. So Carson, I think the Chiefs is one team you could mention. I think the Ravens are another. The Ravens, their backup quarterback, they have a backup quarterback competition right now between Devin Leary, the guy that was drafted out of Kentucky, who looks solid, and then Josh Johnson, who's been around the whole map in the NFL. I think Taylor Heinicke would be way better than either one of those guys to be the backup for Lamar Jackson. Another team I look at are the Los Angeles Chargers. I don't know if the Chargers would want to give up on backup Easton Stick, who's been their backup for a long time. But I honestly think I'd rather take Taylor Heinicke than Easton Stick, if you asked me. Another team I think are the Chicago Bears. I know Tyson Bagent and Brett Rippon have a solid history. Tyson Bagent looked pretty good as a starter last year in his rookie year. But I think Taylor Heinicke is a guy who I'd much rather be a backup quarterback than Tyson Bagent on an NFL team. And then the final team I look at are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I see this one as highly unlikely because even though you're trading a quarterback 3, I don't think you want to do deals with a division rival. Even if what they're adding in is only a backup quarterback. I think that, it'd be an upgrade for the Falcons to add in Taylor Heinicke over compared to their current backup quarterback in Kyle Trask. I like Kyle Trask, but he has no experience as, an NFL starter or has not gotten the opportunity to play yet in the NFL compared to a guy like Tyler Heinicke, who has a 13-15 record. So I think those are the only 5 teams that right now I think he becomes a backup quarterback on their roster. I think all the rest of the 24 teams in the NFL are, he's a QB3. But with the Falcons, honestly, I think with him only being on a 1-year deal, him being a free agent after this season, I think the smart thing for the Falcons would do is to probably just keep him on the roster and have a reliable quarterback 3 next to 2 guys who have injury past with Michael Penix Jr. and Kirk Cousins. Let me know your thoughts on the Falcons potentially trading Taylor Heinicke in the comment section, and peace out.